Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Bayou Bets for Monday, August the 22nd. Zach Ewing here with Spencer the Guru Urquhart. We will be joined by Jim Derry momentarily. Jim's having audio issues. I don't know. Maybe it's because he's old, Spencer. I don't know.
Come on, Jim. Figure it out now.
we're going to talk some Saints preseason. Their game against the Packers last week. We have a point spread for their game against the Chargers coming up on Friday night at the Superdome. And we'll finish up our NFC North preview with a team that I think is very interesting, the Minnesota Vikings. And I think Jim agrees with me. We'll also look ahead to the AFC South. And we have week 0 of college football. There are actually games that count in the football world this Saturday, 5 days away. Can't wait. It starts with Nebraska and Northwestern from Dublin, Ireland at 11:30 in the morning. So we'll talk about the line of that one and the few other games that are on Saturday. We're getting close. We're getting so close I can taste it, Spencer.
Yeah, facts. Yeah, we're almost there, almost to the finish line, getting in the home stretch, all these previews, getting to where we got to, for us fantasy players, got to really zone in on who are our guys, who we don't like. And then, it just football's here. I mean, preseason's about to wrap up, only 1 week to go. So excited to get into the real thing here sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. And you and I will be back at 2:00 tomorrow for the fantasy roundup. A couple of weeks left of that as we talk about drafts and auctions and all those things. Like you said, it's crunch time now. I mean, now's the time you got to settle. It's no longer just an idea whether you like a guy or not. You've got to be willing to push that button and draft a guy a round earlier than everybody else, or wait on him when you know somebody else is going to take him and you're okay with that. So that is the point. And Uncle Big Nick is 16 for 16 NFL unders parlay, not quite, but unders did bounce back, Spencer. I mean, I think unders were well. I think they're like 9 and 6 this week, as opposed to being 3 and 13 last week with one game to go tonight.
Yep, they sure were. I think if I'm remembering right, I did the recap last night. There was a push. They had a game that hit exactly at 42, so I think it was 9-5-1 for us. So yeah,
okay.
Unders definitely
solid,
did better.
Solid record.
Yeah.
Solid record. And then tonight is Falcons and Jets, and that's a line that I think it opened at like 42, and it's been bet all the way under to 38. So it's probably too late to get that under now if you want it. But if, like, let's say that game even goes 39, but even if that game goes 39 or 40 or something, it could still count as an under for a lot of bettors who got it when it was at 41 and 42, just because it didn't go under the closing line. So one of the games that went under was up in Green Bay, the Saints at the Packers, a 20-10 victory for Green Bay. I don't know. I mean, almost even less to take away from this one than there was the Saints loss in Houston. Spencer, Andy Dalton didn't play. Jameis Winston, of course, still kind of nursing a minor foot injury. He didn't play. The list of guys who didn't play was essentially the Saints starting lineup. And Chris Olave is the only guy I can think of who did anything who will actually be on the field in the regular season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Olave, I was encouraging to see him catch that touchdown, but it was pretty much just the Ian Book show, and it was not a pretty show at that. I think it's pretty safe to say Ian Book is not the answer. I don't think he makes the team. He has not shown enough. He's had his little glimpses here and there, but overall is just not taking care of the football, not done enough to show that he's gonna be anywhere near the starting lineup. Not that we expected him to be that, but I was hoping he'd do a little better in the preseason. Kind of disappointing, but hey, at least Olave showed out, and didn't really have the starters like he said, so nothing really to panic here.
Well, I think we've solved the audio issues. We're going to bring on Jim Derry here. Jim, can you hear us?
I can. Don't know what's going on. Weird Monday.
We're in preseason mode as well. Talking a little Saints-Packers from Friday night. And my comment was even less you can take from this one than you could from the Saints' first preseason game. I mean, almost no one played who is going to see the field in the regular season.
Yeah, and it's, here we go with, and I'm not talking about, I just caught the tail end of what Spencer was saying, but I'm just talking about Saints fans in general. Let's can Ian Book and all that stuff. I mean, you just can't tell. I mean, he's played behind the second and third string offensive line. Besides Olave, really, the receivers aren't there. Troutman gets hurt. Who knows? I mean, again, I'll say the same thing I said last week. If you're counting on Ian Book to be a starting quarterback this year, you got way bigger problems than whether Ian Book's going to make this team or not. So let's don't write him off yet. He's going to be the third string quarterback, and I think there's little doubt that he's the third string quarterback. It'll probably be as a member of the practice squad.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and honestly, I say that no one saw the field who will play in the regular season, barring disaster. I mean, barring a 2021-like disaster, when you did have to throw Ian Book up against the Miami Dolphins, he clearly was not ready for that. He also had no talent around him that was ready for that, and so it was a disaster. It was one of the saddest NFL games I've ever attended. I'm sure it was the same way watching on person. There was just nothing to get excited about in that game for fans of really, even for the Dolphins. I mean, it's like, what are we even? It was like this when the Saints played the Broncos in the 2020 season and they had no quarterbacks. It was like, what are we even doing here? Why are we playing this game?
Exactly. So there's little point to debate on whether he's good enough to be an NFL quarterback because we simply don't know. Yeah, no one knows.
I don't think he's ready at this point. I think we can say that.
Of course not. Sure.
But that doesn't mean you give up on him in his second year.
Agreed.
Saints complete the preseason this coming Friday night at home against the Los Angeles Chargers. This point spread just came out about an hour ago at Caesar Sportsbook. Saints 1.5 point favorites against the Chargers. I do think we'll see Andy Dalton again in this one, guys. It remains to be seen whether we'll see Jameis Winston for a series or two. It sounds like he's back at practice and basically back at full activity. So there is that possibility.
I would think that you will. I don't think it's a guarantee. I don't think it's a huge deal if you don't, but I think you'd like to get him some game action if at all possible. I also think you got to get Michael Thomas in there some kind of way, even if he doesn't catch a ball or he's not targeted. I think he needs to be on the field and he needs to be in uniform. And so we talked many times over the past few weeks of how they would treat the third preseason game, whether since there's only three now, whether they would treat it like the regular third or they would treat it like a fourth. And I think you have to treat it like a third preseason game, considering that hardly anyone's been on of real significance, at least it's the skill positions, has been on the field in this preseason. And I think you need to see some of these guys, even if it's only for a series or two, even if they don't do anything, just to get them in uniform and get them through reps and all that. So I think there's a good chance that you'll see a series or two of real starters.
Yeah, Spencer, I think if we don't see Jameis Winston, at least for a series in this game, then it may be time to worry whether he'll be ready for the regular season. Similarly, Mike Thomas dealing with a little bit of a hamstring issue. I know there's still 2 weeks in between this, more than 2 weeks in between this game and the regular season opener, September 11th in Atlanta. But are you ready to worry about Michael Thomas now that he's got another little injury? We haven't seen him in a real game atmosphere yet. And go ahead and drop in the comments, y'all, if you are worried about it and what you think about the Saints thus far in the preseason.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about Jameis. I think Jameis will be back and he'll play a little bit in the preseason. But as for Michael Thomas, I'll be real. I'm concerned. That hamstring, that's the last thing you want to hear. He's coming off, obviously, the ankle surgery, and it's kind of a pattern with guys coming off major surgeries. You hope they can avoid it, but a lot of times these injuries, these smaller injuries will pop up the next year, and if he's already dealing with that, it's going to be something probably almost every other week. He's probably going to have some little nagging thing, and hopefully he can play through them. But I don't know. I have a feeling he's going to miss a few games throughout the year to where Jarvis and Olave are going to have to really step up, which is why for fantasy, I tend to target them and fade Michael Thomas because Thomas usually goes higher than them. And I wouldn't shock me at all if he ends up third in receiving yards on the team, not necessarily because he's not producing while he's there, but I just feel like he's probably going to miss games. And I hate to feel like that, but it's not looking good. And it's already a minor injury.
Our man Jerry has checked in. The Friday night game was terrible. I'll be completely honest. I turned it off in the third quarter. I just couldn't do it anymore. It was just not it. And Jim, you've been saying this. They're not going to have preseason in a few years, and the league has basically made that. The teams have made that decision for the league. I mean, there's no point to it. They're not treating it as anything worthwhile.
Yeah, they get way more out of last week. They got way more out of the joint practice with the Packers than they got out of anything in that preseason game. And, now there's only 3. I mean, before when there was 4, you could kind of follow some guy that maybe wouldn't normally make the team but got a chance to shine. And you're going to have to find that guy now in scrimmages and in joint practices, because you're not going to find them in preseason. There's just not enough to see. They don't care. And I think it's almost the point where they're making a mockery of preseason on purpose. And preseason really is unwatchable. And so, I mean, it would be a surprise, I think, if there's a preseason at all in 5 years or so.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't see the point of it. I will say
it did help me stay up though, Zach, making that dumb drive back from Florida. We talked about it the other day. I drove 9 hours to my father's surprise birthday party. By the way, happy 80th Jim Derry Sr. is today. But I decided to drive back because I wanted to sleep in my own bed, which was a huge mistake. But at least Mike Haas and Deuce McAllister were able to keep me up for about a third of the way. Sort of.
What was the drink of choice on that 9-hour overnight drive back? Was it like Red Bulls? Was it just straight coffee? I mean, what are you drinking to?
No, I drank the same thing that I always drink. I drank. I'll give them a plug because I've been drinking it for 10 years. Mountain Dew Kickstart.
Okay.
So I drank that, but I got to a certain
Those
point.
are the little cans, right? The little ones?
No, they're 16-ounce cans.
Oh, okay.
And they're only 80 calories a can, so which is why I like it, and it's not as strong as the other monster drinks and all that. So, but anyway, I got to a point where I wasn't getting any less tired or sleepy, but my heart felt like it was coming out of my chest. So somewhere around Pensacola, I had to I'm just drinking water, and it was brutal. It was driving 1,100 miles in 20 hours. I don't suggest that to anyone. It was
over under on P stops is 5.5. What do we do?
On just one way back or the whole time?
One way back.
Oh no, less. I wanted to come home. 3.
So you just held it? We held it the whole time? All right.
It's not hard I mean it is hard for a 50.
I was going to say I admire that. That's real perseverance right there.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
If I would have stopped one more time, I might have ended up in a ditch somewhere around Biloxi.
Uncle Big Nick gets up at like 4 a.m., so at some point you probably could have called him.
Oh, I should have actually, because I didn't get home till 5 a.m.
Yeah. All right. You're watching Bayou Bets here on bet.nola.com, brought to you by Caesar Sportsbook. And there are some awesome boosts for Louisiana bettors on Caesar Sportsbook this week. So we took a look at a few of those. A couple of them are LSU related. Jaden Daniels, who for all intents and purposes looks like he's won the starting quarterback job for the Tigers. Brian Kelly hasn't announced it officially yet, but it sure looks like it's Jaden Daniels' job to lose. A little parlay here, over 2,800.5 yards and over 21.5 touchdowns. You can get that for plus 160. Derek Stingley, the LSU alum, to win Defensive Rookie of the Year for the Texans. That's boosted up from 10-1 to 12-1. And then the one that I really like, guys, or that I think is the most interesting maybe, Saints and LSU combined over 14.5 wins for plus 180. Now, if you just combine their two win totals, the Saints are at 8.5, LSU's at 7. That's 15.5. And so you only have to get over 14.5, and you're getting plus 180. On the surface, seems like a very good deal.
I get that Spence. He's better with the player props and other things.
Oh, about the Jaden Daniels.
All 3 of them. I mean, the Saints LSU.
Yeah, I was about to say, I really like that, the Saints LSU. That's so I played it last night actually, because I feel like that's just one of those where you got to do it if you believe that the Saints and LSU are gonna be decent, which I know most of us believe they'll both be competitive. And I feel like if LSU wins 6 or 7 and the Saints win 8 or 9, that should still be right there. The only way they wouldn't would be if this LSU would win 6 and the Saints would only win 8. But I feel like even if if the Saints win 9 and LSU wins 6, you still get it. That's 15. So to me, that's the best one on that board. Jaden Daniels, I probably wouldn't mess with because I still think Nussmeier could end up being the quarterback at some point. And then Stingley maybe, but I don't know, man. The Texans they're such a work in progress. I probably wouldn't mess with that one either.
Defensive Rookie of the Year is a tough one too. handicap too, because you got all those defensive ends and outside linebackers who were drafted in the top 5. Somebody can rack up 10 or 12 sacks. And if Stingley doesn't get a bunch of picks, it's going to be real difficult for a defensive back to win that. But as far as the Saints and LSU, Jim, I think Spencer's right. I mean, you look at what is the floor for these teams, right? Maybe the floor for LSU is probably 5 and 7. If you think 4 and 8,
I think 4 wins is the floor for LSU. I'm not saying that's what their record will be.
I mean, we're talking like
I do think they have a floor of 4,
right? If everything goes wrong, they win 4. If everything goes wrong, the Saints win maybe 7. So that's the worst case scenario. You're looking at 11 or 12 wins. You only need to get to 15 for this bet to cash, and you're getting plus 180. So I like that. If it was even money, I would stay away from it. But at plus 180, I think you're getting probably a 50-50, maybe slightly better than 50-50 chance, and you're getting plus money there.
I definitely think there's value. I will say that. I definitely think there's value. I bet it not big, but I bet it a little bit.
Just to clarify too, the max bet on all of these is $100. So right. On these odds boosts, you can't bet real big. The max bet is $100.
So I'm scared of LSU, I guess. And if the Saints win 8 or 9, let's say they win 8, I think they'll win more than that. I mean, I don't want to give them my spoiler alert away on the Saints, their preview coming out next week, but let's just say they win 8, which is about where Vegas thinks they are, although it's up to 8.5 now. Then that means that LSU has to win 7. I think that's asking a lot. Their over-under is 7, but do you think they're going to win that many? I kind of think no. So I think the ceiling on LSU is 7 or 8. So you're asking them to hit their ceiling if the Saints just do what they're supposed to do. It's still, and all that being said, it is good value. I do like the plus 180.
Yeah, I think it's value. I personally, and Jim, I know you're the same way, have a lot on the Saints going over 8 already and over 7.5. And so basically this becomes a bet on LSU. To me, and LSU is a totally unknown commodity. So I don't know that I'm going to bet it just simply because of that. But if I didn't have anything on the Saints, it's a nice way to hedge to where if the Saints do only win 8, maybe LSU goes 7-5 and cashes that bet for you anyway. So I do think there's something there.
It scares me though that Vegas knows something we don't.
Well, it's Uncle Big Nick just said it. Sometimes these bets seem too easy, and it's
for sure.
Yeah. So I will say that, like I said, their win totals are 7 and 8.5, which equals 15.5. And so I don't think you can actually parlay those things. But if you could, you would be a regular parlay is plus 260 to get 15.5. So maybe over 14.5 at plus 180 is not all that good. Of course, one of these teams goes over by 3 wins. Like if the Saints go 11 and 7, that bet's going to hit.
That parlay at 8 would not have been that with the Saints because they were minus 160. Now that they're 8.5 at minus 110, I believe. And LSU, I think, is right around minus 110 at 7. So now if you parlayed them, if you could, you would get plus 260 at 15.5. So
yeah, and I don't think
it works out to be about right.
Yeah, I don't think you can parlay those things, those win totals, but it's worth
not
a shot.
At Caesars, but you may be able to parlay it somewhere else. Not that we talk about anybody else here.
You just have to kind of try it, put it in your bet slip, and see if it'll take it if that's what you want to do. But you definitely can bet this boost at Caesars, and I think there's some value there. So,
well, I will say this about Stingley, and you talk about you mentioned how it's hard for a defensive back to put up enough numbers to win a Defensive Player of the Year. You look at their schedule and who they have to play, and they have a lot of. I mean, they have a lot of games. I'm just looking here, especially towards the end of the season, of teams that are going to throw the ball a lot. So that scares me enough to where I don't think the Texans' defense is going to be any good. I mean, they were 31st last year in the NFL. So for him to be, he would have to be put them in the 23 to 24 range and be the reason why. And I don't see that happening. I actually don't think there's value on plus 1,200. I agree with Spencer. It's really hard for defensive back to win that anyway. And unless you're just an LSU homer and you want to put a couple bucks on it because you want to see it happen, I don't think you bet that.
Yeah, and think about this too. The Texans are as bad as everybody thinks they're going to be. that means the other team's going to be running. So
you'll find out tomorrow.
Yeah, that's what we call a segue in the business. We're moving on to our NFL previews. We just wrapped up the NFC North last week. The one team we did not get to on Thursday's edition of Bayou Bets was the Minnesota Vikings, who, and Jim, I think you agree with me, I happen to think is the most intriguing option for bettors in the NFC North.
I think they could be the best value with these numbers in the NFC. No offense, Saints fans, because the Saints numbers have ticked up as of the last couple of weeks. But I think the Vikings numbers, that win total is even at minus 135. I really like it to make the playoffs. Minus 105, I'd love. And to win the NFC North, I'd love even more, plus 250. I just don't think the Packers, and I said it last week, I think the Packers are going to struggle a bit. Now, when I say struggle a bit, that's relative. I mean, I don't think they're going to have a losing record or anything, but I think that this is the Vikings' best shot to wrest the NFC North crown from them in quite a while, because I think that Aaron Rodgers is a little bit older. I had a fantasy draft last night, an auction draft, where Aaron Rodgers went for $3. I mean,
wow.
It's insane. And I just don't – I think that there's a reason why I think Kirk Cousins is a better fantasy option than Aaron Rodgers, which is blasphemy. I know in the fantasy world, and Spencer, we can't see his face. He's probably shaking his head right now, but he has better weapons. Kirk Cousins has better weapons. He is, I think Dalvin Cook is better than Aaron Jones and or A.J. Dillon. And, I mean, there's no question his receiving core is better. So I think that this is the year that the Vikings maybe take the AFC North, and certainly NFC North, and certainly at plus 250. There's great value there.
Yeah, I don't think that Cousins take is that hot. I could easily see him finishing over Aaron Rodgers, because I feel like with Kevin O'Connell there, I'd mentioned it in my fantasy preview, that's going to really help open things up. I really like Justin Jefferson. I have him as my number one overall receiver for fantasy. So I feel like their offense will be just fine. The only thing I feel like Green Bay's defense is better. So it's tough for me to like go all in with Minnesota, but I agree that there's definitely value to be had there.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Spencer. Kevin O'Connell, I think, is a big deal coming over. He was the Rams offensive coordinator the past 2 years. And so I think that Vikings offense opens up. I love Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, all of them in fantasy, Adam Thielen. And I think the defense will be better, Jim, just because they had a ton of injuries last year.
And Spence, I want to ask you a question about, everybody's talking about Gabriel Davis as this breakout player because of what he did in the end of the last season for the Buffalo Bills. But I think KJ Osborne could kind of take that role at receiver. I think KJ Osborne might be the best number 3 wide receiver in the league. I think even better than Jarvis Landry and some other guys you talk about. This receiving core for the Vikings is really scary if you're an opponent. And I love Osborne.
Yeah, he's interesting. And then they also have Irv Smith, who will be back. I like him a lot at tight end. So, yeah, if you've got 4 legit weapons and Dalvin Cook, yeah, this is one. I remember you mentioned about the Raiders being like a dark horse to lead the league in score. And I think this Minnesota team might be one as well. And you could probably get them at a nice value.
And, Zach, to answer your question, I think their defense is good enough. I don't think they're great. It was kind of disappointing. The biggest disappointment, I think, was, under Zimmer playing as poorly as they played on defense last year, because you would think that a defensive-minded coach would be better. But I think it was because they couldn't get enough going offensively to keep that defense off the field, and they just got trashed by Aaron Rodgers. But I think they'll be better. I think they're middle of the pack, and honestly, to win this division, if they're middle of the pack with this offense, that might be good enough.
Yeah, I agree. Saints, by the way, play the Vikings on, I believe it's October the 2nd in London.
Yeah. In London.
So that'll be an interesting one, especially if you look at these Vikings odds again to make the playoffs. They're basically split right down the middle. Very slight favorites to miss the playoffs at minus 115. And the Saints are not much behind them. So this, that could be a very important game for the NFC playoffs.
Very similar teams, except the Saints defense obviously is much better than Minnesota's, but Minnesota's offense is better than the Saints. So overall, I think these teams, one of these teams is going to be a huge surprise to the lines makers and odds makers. Hence why that look ahead line is right now. I believe it's Saints -1, or that's what it was.
It's one. Yeah, it might be Vikings -1. It's right. I mean, it's right next to a pick'em. Only 2 divisions left in our NFL previews as
Thank
we
God.
look forward to the season. We're going to the
Almost
AFC
there.
South this week, and then we'll end with the NFC South next week. And then, of course, it'll be week 1 after that. So a quick glance at the AFC South. Of course, the way we do this, you guys know the drill by now. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. In the mornings, you get a betting preview, a win total preview with Jim and Adam Chernoff from Covers.com. In the afternoon, you get Spencer's fantasy preview for that team. So the AFC South, we go in alphabetical order. It starts with the Houston Texans tomorrow, then goes Indianapolis Colts, Jacksonville Jaguars, and Tennessee Titans. I had to say the alphabet in my head real quick. I before J. But that's what we're doing this week. Here's a look at the odds for the entire division. And I'm going to start with this question. And Jim, you can wait until Thursday if you want to answer this because I don't want to spoil too much. But if you took some money and put it on the Colts and put it on the Titans, you'd probably turn a profit, right? Like, unless you think the Jaguars or Texans are going to win this division, one of those 2 teams is going to win. And because the juice is higher on the Titans than it is on the Colts, like it'd be an investment. They would hold your money for 4 months, but one way or the other, you'd turn a profit.
Yeah, I don't see how one of those teams doesn't win the division. And I will say this. This is the most interesting banter of the entire previews thus far between Adam and I don't want to give anything away, but it is absolutely worth watching, especially on the Colts and the Titans. I have made it clear throughout the past year that for some reason the Sharps, they love them some Colts and hate them some Titans. And I think it affects the numbers, and it is reflected most certainly in the talk with our expert.
Yeah, it is amazing. And Kyle says, I mean, the odds makers last year was the same way. Titans got the number 1 seed, and look, ultimately they were right. The Titans lost as the number 1 seed.
But that doesn't matter for regular season bets.
But during the season, you could cash a lot of bets betting on the Titans, even after Derrick Henry went out.
Yeah, and look, and they got a little lucky, and I'm sure Spencer will talk about Derrick Henry and how is he going to come back off of that he missed the last 10 games of the year, and how is he going to come back from that? Is he fully healthy? And the Titans O-line is not very good, but that doesn't seem to matter to Derrick Henry. Ryan Tannehill I know he threw 4 picks in the playoffs, and he's had games where he's looked incredibly lousy, but he's also had plenty of games where he's done what he needed to do to push the Titans over the top. And no A.J. Brown, but I love Treylon Burks, and I think he could be the next A.J. Brown.
I love Treylon Burks as well, and I know, Spencer, you don't like him. We've had that argument on the fantasy show, at least not for this season. What's your take on this? Colts versus Titans? Or honestly, at plus 650, I'm surprised that Jaguars number is not higher. I mean, the Sharps may see some possibilities there as well.
Yeah, I feel like Jacksonville, I mean, they could possibly be a dark horse with Doug Peterson there now, but I wouldn't mess with it because I still think they've got a lot of growing to do with Trevor Lawrence. They've got all new weapons there, so it's going to be a transition year. Definitely will be better than they were under Herb last year. That was such a disaster. But
we talk about that a lot this week.
Yeah, so they'll be better. They'll be better, no doubt. And I feel like the Texans, I know they're bad. They don't have much talent, but I feel like they're gonna fight hard. They're probably gonna cover a lot of spreads. I feel like throughout the year because I think Davis Mills is a little better than people give him credit for. And I think I mentioned this fairly recently. I think it was on here about how he could be a good super flex option for fantasy leagues because with their defense being bad, they're going to be trailing a lot, and I think he'll be able to rack up some yards.
And Dameon Pierce is getting a lot of love in the fantasy world these days.
Oh yeah,
coming in as a number 3 running back. I don't see how he doesn't take over the roles of Marlon Mack and Rex Burkhead and end up being number 1. I agree with Spencer, and again, I don't want to take too much away from preview tomorrow, but look. Lovie Smith is a defensive-minded coach. What he really needs to do is just make this team tougher and give them some heart, and I think they will get there.
Right. We'll talk more AFC South on Thursday's edition of the Bayou Bets at 4 o'clock live on these same channels. Go through the first 3 teams. That's Houston, Indianapolis, and Jacksonville, and then we'll save Tennessee for next Monday and take our first in-depth look at the NFC South. And Kyle says Dameon Pierce will be the offensive rookie of the year. That's boy, that will pay well. I don't know.
There's a lot of good receivers out there. He's going to have a really good year for that to happen.
Yeah, and Breece Hall.
And Breece Hall, yeah.
If it does hit, I'm going to look up what that would pay because it's going to be pretty.
Might be some value with it because I think he's probably in the second best position. Kenneth Walker's hurt. Right now he's now my second ranked rookie running back.
25-1 for Dameon Pierce to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. So maybe not as high as
where it should be.
Nick, you can request anything you want. That doesn't mean Jim's going to do it though. Conference by conference would be one thing. How about a team by team NBA preview?
That would be a hell no.
All right, before we move on, a couple of Kyle wants to know, Spencer, how did your old man do in his fantasy draft?
Oh yeah, we had our home league this weekend, the old paper league back in Lafayette. Made the drive back to Lafayette for that on Sunday, and my dad got Dameon Pierce. Yeah, he sniped him actually. I was like, damn it! I was like, why did you take Pierce? I had him, thought I could get him. I
blame Kyle.
Yep. Kyle's on that to put him on the Pierce. But yeah, no, I feel like we both got it because they had some people that had some outrageous off the wall strategies. Where me and my dad's team, I felt like were ridiculously stacked because people would take like Josh Allen went second overall, Aaron Jones went in the first round. Just some
Josh Allen went second overall.
Oh yeah.
And this is not a super flex league.
Not a super flex. It is quarterback friendly, though. They get 6 points for a passing touchdown and don't lose any for interception. So it's not quite as crazy as it seems, but it's still, I was no way I'd have done it.
Pretty crazy.
Jim is quaking with rage at non-traditional fantasy rules over there. I can see him.
I'm trying to let go, Zach.
Decimal points.
I relented. I got in those league. That was the league I had last night. I relented and got in it. My wife kind of hit me over the head with a hammer and told me how big of a person, not nice person, I was being. So
yeah, lots of time to think about it on that 1,100-mile drive.
Saturday. Yeah, I got in, and it was an interesting draft, very interesting. And I will say this: I don't recommend auction drafts that are not in person. Doing them on ESPN
it takes forever. Yeah,
it's not just forever. It's the way that I'm used to auction drafts, and it's like you have way less time and things are beeping. I'm like, wait, I don't know if I want to bid on this guy or not. What he's going, and then I spent too much on certain guys, and I did get Josh Allen as a matter of fact, but I don't think I overpaid. But I didn't get my second running back. My number 2 running back is Kareem Hunt, and so I'm in dire straits when it comes to running backs.
Just got to keep that fab handy. You're playing the hero.
Oh, I've already tried to use some on Zamir White. So
yeah. All right, let's pivot. Let's talk a little college football and a little golf to end the show here. Bring up a comment from Nick earlier talking about LSU and Florida State. This is interesting. LSU is a 3-point favorite, and it opened 3.5. It's now 3. And one of the interesting things about this game is that Florida State gets a game this coming weekend. They play week 0, and LSU does not. And so the question is, how big of an advantage is that?
It is an advantage. I don't know how much of one. So what I'll be looking to see is what happens to that line after Florida State plays, whether they play well or whether they don't play well. I think, didn't they play Notre Dame in the opener last year, and they had it was down to the wire, and so all of a sudden we thought Florida State was good again. And it turns out
the interesting thing is it was Mike Norvell against Brian Kelly, just like it'll be this year. So
yeah, so I don't know. I don't know how much you can take, but it is an advantage. I don't know that I will play that line as we get closer and we talk about it. I need to call my old buddy Devin Jackson and see what he thinks.
Yeah, if anybody knows anything about Duquesne football, it'll be Devin.
Yeah, so he'll tell us what to bet. Maybe we can have him on as in a guest spot.
It's a good idea.
Why not?
It's a good idea for Thursday. I don't. It's Duquesne. I don't know how much it's going to tell you. Duquesne. I think they are generally pretty good in FCS. Although
what's their mascot? I don't even know.
The Dukes. The Duquesne Dukes.
Oh yeah, the Dukes. Yeah, they do pretty good in basketball, I think.
Did they spell it Duques?
Unfortunately not.
No, they should.
Unfortunately, that is not the case. They were 7-3 last year. So, a solid FCS team, still an FCS team, might give Florida State a chance to work some kinks out that LSU will not have.
Didn't Florida State lose to like Jacksonville State last year?
They did.
So, I mean,
Jacksonville State now is a dynamite FCS team. That's one of the best FCS teams in the division. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not saying it's a good loss, but I don't know. Look, I don't know how much Florida State's going to get from it. Like I said, the lines move from 3.5 to 3. It'll be interesting. We will be live Saturday before the game from the brand new Caesar Sportsbook at Harrah's, New Orleans. So stop by, say hi to us. We'll be live at 1:00 that afternoon, and then we'll be live from 4:00 at Champion Square outside the Dome. So if you're going to the game, stop by, check out the Bayou Bets site. We might have a T-shirt or a mug for you, and we'll be previewing the game just a couple of hours before it happens. Now, Florida State Duquesne does not have a line yet. A lot of times those FCS games don't get lines until the day before the game. But we do have
Doors.
Yeah, we do have some week 0 college football lines. So I'm excited about this. The first time we've been able to do this since February is talk about football games coming up this weekend that matter, that count. And so very interesting. We have Nebraska, Northwestern in Dublin. I was a little surprised at how much Nebraska was favored by, but did you guys know last year, this stat will blow your mind. Nebraska was 3-9 with a plus 66 point differential. How is that even possible?
That. Well, they won games 88-0.
They won a bunch of games by 40. Well, not a bunch. They won 3 games by 40 points and then lost a bunch of games by, 5 or less. So anyway, they're favored by a couple of touchdowns. Illinois plays against Wyoming. New Mexico State, interesting one here. They play Nevada on Saturday, and then they turn around and play again on Thursday, September the 1st. They could lose 2 games before anybody else even plays any. And then the last game of the night, Vandy, a touchdown favorite at Hawaii.
Go Doors, go! Got to get over that 2.5, baby.
Yeah, you got over 2.5 wins. Is that what you got?
I got it. Done deal.
I don't know if we got 3X shirts, Nick. I'll have to check with marketing.
3X is being
but
nice. It better be stretchable 3X.
If we do, man, that's mean. If we do, I'll save one for you.
Non-shrinkable 3X.
Any other takes here? I know Devin Jackson's not here to walk us through this stuff, but
all kidding aside, I really am looking forward to that Vanderbilt Hawaii game just to see, because I really think Vanderbilt's going to be a little bit better than people expect them to be, which is not saying much because no one expects them to be anything. So, and when's the last time Vanderbilt was favored over a non-FCS team? By
on the road,
points.
No doubt.
On the road by 7 points. Interesting.
And that's I don't know if I like fading Hawaii at home, though. That is a long plane ride for Vanderbilt.
Yeah, it's almost as long as my drive the other day.
What else? I kind of like Nebraska, Spencer. Because you do look at what they were able to do last year, where they just pulverized bad teams. And I think that's a bounce back category. Is if a team loses a bunch of close games, going to be a little bit better the next year. I think they could get off to a good start, although they do have a new quarterback. Adrian Martinez left for Kansas State, and they got Casey Thompson in from Texas. So that's the one I'll be watching for sure.
Am I back, y'all? I kind of lost you.
Did we lose you, Spencer? There you are.
Oh yeah, no, I'm back now. Okay, good. All right. Yeah, it'd be cool to see week 0. It'll be. I haven't really. I'll have to call Devin, to see if there's anything worth playing, because I'll be real. I haven't really looked at any of these teams too much, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they shake out, and it'll be. I mean, I don't want to give out too many takes because I don't really know the teams, but I'm definitely excited for it though.
He's in fantasy mode, Zach.
Yeah, I'm absolutely. When I post this video on Twitter, I'm absolutely tagging Devin and telling him to drop a pick in the replies.
I hope week 0 is better than Coke Zero. That's all I have to say.
I like Coke
Zero.
It's
gotta be.
Week 0 brought to you by Coke Zero. I like Mountain Dew.
Not anymore.
Speaking of Mountain Dew. All right. PGA Tour Championship this weekend. This is the goofy one where, depending on where you are in the standings, you get bonus strokes to start, which makes it very confusing. You can actually bet this tournament just who will have the low round this weekend, but that's goofy too, because these guys aren't firing at pins if
Correct.
it's just totally goofy. I believe Rory McIlroy is a plus 800 favorite in just this weekend. But Scotty Scheffler gets to start. He's number 1 in the world, so he's minus 10 to start. Patrick Cantlay, minus 8. Will Zalatoris is minus 7. Then Xander Schauffele, minus 6. You see these odds. It takes a pretty complicated math equation just to figure out how you want to bet this thing.
This would be like, here's why these, we love golf, right? Well, I mean, I love golf, and obviously I've won a lot of money this year with golf, and Uncle Big Nick's won more than me, and Zach, I think you've won some. But this is how stupid these playoffs are. This would be like, let's say, I don't know, going into the season, the Bills are the number 1 seed, and in their first round matchup, they get the upstart Colts. They go through and they have to play the Bills, and the Bills start off with a 10-0 lead. I mean, would anybody think that's a good idea?
In a way, I get it, because in football, the better team is going to win most weeks anyway. Not every week, but most weeks. And so the Bills already have that advantage.
But it's
in
playoffs.
golf, we know, look, we already know who the best guys are, but if you're not rewarding them for how they play in previous weeks, then they don't have an incentive to play those weeks. They'll just show up, which is how golf's always been. They show up for the majors, and those are the most fun weeks. So it's different. I'll give it that. Listen to Uncle Big Nick on golf. He says he likes Sam Burns. Now, I got to ask, is that to have the low round this weekend, or is that to actually make up the 5 shots on Scheffler and win the title?
I don't know what Uncle Big Nick's going to say, and I haven't done enough research yet. I will tomorrow. But I have this weird feeling. I don't like the way Scheffler's been playing. I know he didn't play terrible this weekend, but I don't like the way he's playing. Yeah, he did, and I don't like the way he's playing right now, and I think he's going to get caught.
I mean, look, I will say this. Nick says he bet Burns both ways, both to have the low round of the weekend and 20-1 to catch Scheffler and to win the whole thing. You can't bet Scotty here because plus 240. I mean, look, it's only a field of 30 anyway, but it's only a 2-stroke advantage on Cantlay. I mean, it's not like you're not getting very much.
I got to be honest. Yeah,
Scheffler bogeys the first hole, Cantlay birdies the first hole. They're tied right there, and then you only got plus 240.
I'm not going to bet a lot of golf this week. This is not this is. I mean, we've talked about how values have changed in golf over the past couple of months because I think people were kind of catching on to. They have changed the odds dramatically over the past 6 to 8 tournaments. And here, you're just not getting any. I don't think you're getting any value. The only plays I'm going to make probably are guys. I'll probably make more live bets than I'll make pre-tournament this week. I might take a guy like Finau and hope that his off week last week, or at least what really his off opening round, and that he can make up some ground because the way he's playing right now, he could. So you got to look for value. There's not a ton because there's only 30 golfers in it. You can't even bet top 10s because, I mean, what are you going to bet Scheffler at minus 1,000 to finish in the top 10? I mean, you can't do it. So
yeah, and as Uncle Big Nick says, like 5 shots is not. I mean, in 4 days, it's what 1.25 shots per day. Like they'll make that up easy.
Which is why that I'll bet a couple, the lower guys like maybe a Finau or something like maybe a Burns or something like that.
Scheffler has an advantage, but it's not a big advantage.
Yeah.
And Cantlay's the defending champion here. He's in second place, but he's only plus 400. So not much there. Spencer, just to get you included here, the NASCAR playoffs are a week away. I guess it's almost 2 weeks yet, but there's only one race left in the regular season.
Right. Yeah. Yesterday was interesting with the 2 guys that really needed a win, Martin Truex and Ryan Blaney. They didn't deliver. So it's gonna come down to either them or another first-time winner. It's pretty chaotic right now because, like Jim is saying about how the golf playoffs thing is kind of gimmicky. The NASCAR, that's even worse. I mean, it's literally the 2 of the top 4 in the point standing. It's looking like either one or both will not make the playoffs because the NASCAR system of winning you're in. And both of them, they've been super consistent, Blaney and Truex, but have yet to win a race. So it's looking like that at least one, maybe both, will not make it. So it's pretty. That would have
been like keeping Will Zalatoris out of the PGA playoffs. The guy's top 10 every week but never won until the playoffs.
Here's what I don't understand about NASCAR and their playoffs. I'm all about it, doing the playoff thing, but why would they choose to do it when NFL's starting? Why wouldn't you do it
the
in that week
timing of
before?
it's,
That makes no sense.
Yeah, the timing of it's their first playoff week is the week before NFL, but it's just,
Okay.
but yeah, it's just that, the NASCAR schedule is like, I feel like it'd be better if they shorten the schedule and like have the playoffs going on like right now, like before football. They've talked about shortening it. It's just tough because there's so many different tracks. Like the tracks don't want to lose their race date, so it's hard to cut it down. But I feel like it wouldn't be the worst idea because going up against football during the playoffs is it hurts their ratings.
And Premier League soccer's going on.
Oh well, thank God for that.
That's what I'm watching.
Yeah,
hey, Man
Formula
United
One and
Liverpool
IndyCar, all kind of stuff.
Man United was like plus 400 at home against Liverpool and won.
Oh wow!
So you could have made some. I wasn't going to.
Who does Messi play for?
Messi plays for PSG.
Okay, well that's my team.
Okay, he played for Barcelona for a long time. But,
I like Messi.
Paris Saint-Germain. All right, final thoughts, gentlemen. With 1 week of the NFL preseason to go, we get sort of a little taste of college football this week, and then we're really ready to go in a week.
For sure. Yeah, excited to see. It'll be interesting to see how tonight's little preseason game goes. I'd put the over. I mean, that's not the under for best bets tonight at the Jets Falcons. So don't think there's going to be a whole lot of offense. But these preseason games are just hard to predict. The Saints Chargers this week. It'll be interesting to see if Jameis plays. But yeah, just can't wait for the real thing. Be glad about the college week 0, even though it's like no premier matchups. It's still gonna be nice to actually have, like I said, football that counts. It's tired of all this preseason and speculation. Let's start playing games that actually count.
Yeah, absolutely. Jim, your final thought.
You and I joked about seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, but these and it's the same way every year. These last couple of weeks before the start of the regular season, not just on a sports writer, but they're just brutal. I mean, let's get on with it already. I mean, we've done as many previews and looks ahead and our thoughts on things, and people are just ready for the real thing to happen. And I know once the real thing happens, it's like time goes by so fast and you're just moving along. But I'm telling you, doing 32 team previews, it is not been a piece of cake. Let's just put it that way. And they all start running into each other, and it's hard to believe that they, started 2 months ago or however long it was ago. But man, let's get this thing rolling and let's get this season going. And one last shout out to my pops. 80 years old is quite an accomplishment. I don't care who you are and where you are and what kind of life you live. That is quite an accomplishment. And I'm praying I look as good as he looks when I turn 80, if I turn 80.
Here's to 90 and beyond.
Working with you guys may take a couple of years off my life, but
come on now. I'll tell you what takes years off your life. If you're the athletic director at Southern Methodist University, SMU in Dallas, listen. They got a ton of rain today. Check out what the turf looks like
at
Gerald
imagine.
J. Ford Stadium today.
Oh my God, the turf bubbled up. Is that for real?
That is for real, and that's not good. When
my goodness!
I assume they got a home game in 2 or 3 weeks here.
Yikes!
They're ready for football. Their turf's in the shape hole.
Yeah,
they might be playing at a local high school, and although some of those local high schools are probably bigger stadiums in Texas than
I guarantee you, there are Dallas high schools that put enough money into their stadium to where that would never happen. But not at SMU, baby. Go find SMU's win total, bet the under, because they're going to be on the road for like 2 months.
They're still they're still paying for the death penalty in the football karma gods.
I guess Eric Dickerson's going to have to cut a check, man. Give some of that money back.
Too.
All right, that's it for us on
James.
Bayou Bets. It's week 0 in college football. We made it, everybody. We also have PGA playoffs, the Tour Championship this weekend, doing the AFC South on bet.nola.com. Check us out every day, new content, and we will see you at 2 o'clock tomorrow for the fantasy roundup, 4 o'clock Thursday for the next edition of Bayou Bets. For Jim Derry and Spencer the Guru, I'm Zach Ewing. Have a good one.